As you're watching this, an announcement may have already been made about a June 2023 Nintendo Direct that would have previously been not E3 but E3 adjacent, as reported by a pair of what seem to be credible leakers. If this is the case, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm definitely ready to see what's next for the Nintendo Switch, despite eating real good this year already, all the way from Fire Emblem Engage to this past week's Loop 8 Summer of Gods. As I'm recording this, no such announcement has been made, but there's a lot of that fire-insinuating smoke that tends to puff up around this time of year, and with a lot of questions surrounding Nintendo's plans already, this just muddies the waters further. The disconcerting thing about all of this is, of course, Nintendo's apparent reasoning for not participating in E3 2023, and the apparent direct effect that had leading to the event's outright cancellation. After all, if there is a June Direct, especially if that June Direct lands this week, all their talk of E3 not coinciding with their promotional plans for the year is an outright lie. I have always maintained that E3 week is the one time of year that game companies can rest assured they have the full attention of the entire gaming culture, so distancing themselves from E3 when it was still set to happen was simply not in their best interests if they had something to say, which now actually looks as though it may be the case. In the context they gave, it made sense, especially when they announced that they were participating in Gamescom 2 months later. Thinking about it now, I'm not altogether certain what could happen in 2 months that makes a Gamescom presentation more palatable than an E3 one, except that maybe they were planning on a long period of radio silence after either one, and want to make it as short as possible by having the next Direct happen as late as possible. That doesn't line up with the current apparent hardware situation though, whether you believe it's a Switch Pro or a Switch 2. Why wouldn't you get that into the E3 news cycle to maximize the exposure level if you were able to? The bad faith dialogue surrounding this is an unfortunate reminder that while the Switch is Nintendo's crowning achievement as a platform holder and one of the greatest consoles ever released, if not the greatest, its only serious competition being the PlayStation 2 if we're being honest, Nintendo as a company is pretty detestable and often cuts off its own nose to spite its face, as also evidenced by their recent actions surrounding the emulation and DIY scene, something I may or may not touch on in a future video. Hopefully it'll make sense in a year or so, but right now it really looks like Nintendo torpedoed E3 for no good reason when they could have had an absolutely massive stage for whatever their hardware plans are. Not a good outlook at all for Team 2023, I might add. Putting all the SMH aside though, if true, this shakes up the entire forecast for the next year for Nintendo. Just recently I did a video about the next Nintendo Direct and what that might entail, operating on the assumption that the usual June and September Directs were being blended into a single August Gamescom Direct, in no small part because of a relative lack of first-party output for the foreseeable future. This makes me think back to Shuntaro Furukawa's narrative-defining Uncharted Territory comments. Something that tends to get downplayed from that statement is that Nintendo's first-party Switch pipeline is still very much open for business, and the company continues to listen to pitches for new, current-generation games. If we're still on track for 2 more Directs this year, that tells me that the in-house studios have been far busier than indicated up to this point. Now, after the last video, I'm not going to go at length again trying to predict the actual contents of these 2 theoretical Directs, because predicting unannounced games that haven't even been rumored, the types of games that would largely necessitate a 3rd Direct by the end of 2023, is a fool's errand, and I think the bulk of what I covered previously will still apply between the 2 shows. What I can see now is a largely software-driven June Direct with a largely Switch Pro-centric August or September Direct to follow. This does kind of make me wonder what role Gamescom plays in all of this, but with Nintendo not actually announcing any news disclosures for September's Nintendo Live, it makes sense that they'd want to get that taken care of ahead of time so that people know exactly what will be exhibited on the show floor in Seattle. As for the rumors themselves, do I personally believe them? I'm having trouble forming an opinion, to be completely honest. Apparently the leakers are legitimate with good track records, but I have nothing but hearsay to base that on, as I have no actual knowledge of what they leaked in the past and with what accuracy, which is a huge metric in how I evaluate the validity of any source. They were both also based on tweets with no other rumors attached to them that could prove true or untrue ahead of time, adding or removing credence from the talk of a June Direct, so that's out too. Where I have a problem with it is that it flies so squarely in the face of so much that has been established about Nintendo's espoused timetable that if a June Direct did get announced, it would justifiably raise questions about other things, like the aforementioned E3 snub. For all of Nintendo's faults, which are many, their logic usually tracks even if you don't always agree with it. That wouldn't be the case if we got a June Direct. Again, I'd love for it to happen because more Directs mean more Switch games, but for this to be right, quite a lot else has to be wrong, and I just have to side with the obvious odds on this one and stay focused on Gamescom in 2 months. That's all for now. If you like this video, then please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it all helps grow the channel. Click the notification bell to know right away when the next video comes out. I'm Patrick Mifflin, and I'll see you back here soon.